Man, oh man, oh man. You know what? This is a real interesting week. The economy is facing what I would call a three-headed monster. This three-headed monster is potentially going to cause some major economic damage, but nobody really knows exactly what that's going to look like. But I'm going to tell you what's going on, what I have been seeing, and how you might want to prepare for the coming economic thunderstorm. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started on the Black Financial Channel right now. Welcome to the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. I'm your friendly neighborhood finance professor. On the Black Financial Channel, we talk about Black wealth and Black economics every single day, sometimes as much as 10 times a day, under the B1 condition. B1 means we are Black first. We are declaring war on the racial wealth gap. The racial wealth gap is as good as dead for all the intelligent Black people who show up here, because I'm going to show you things about wealth that even white people don't know, because that's what my PhD qualifies me to do. So as you come into the chat, I want to say hi to Jermaine and B1 Wichita for Yolanda. Shout out the city you're from, Detroit, man, and Muhammad Ibrahim and Leandra Bradley from St. Paul, Minnesota. I bet you, is it cold up there? Is it still cold up in St. Paul? Anyway, I'm down in Houston for the Black Wealth Boot Camp. I'm going to be down here for 2 days. We only have Houston and Dallas left. Those are the only two cities we have left. And so if you'd like to join us in Houston, feel free to get on a flight or drive on down. I guarantee you won't regret it, because there's some amazing Black people down here, and we're all about that Black wealth. We're all about teaching each other. Also, a reminder, if you ever want to advertise on this channel, just go to drboycefinance.com. If you have a platform, we'll shout you out. If you have a business, we'll shout you out. We'll send customers your way. So feel free to go to drboycefinance.com if you'd like to market on this channel. Now, let's talk about the economy. How many of you, give me a yes or no, how many of you think that we have a recession coming this year? Give me a yes if you think that a recession is on its way. What do you guys think? Do you think that there's a recession coming, or do you think that it's much ado about nothing? Or what are your thoughts about that? And I'm going to dissect this for you and let you know sort of the variables that economists are looking at as it pertains to predicting whether or not there's going to be a recession. Okay, so I see some yeses from G. Willis and Gerald and Leona and Valerie and T. Branch. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. Okay, I see a no from Grace. Okay, all right. So a few of you said, a couple of you said no. Most of you said yes. And I'm going to guess that the right answer is probably yes. So whether there's a recession coming is not really the big question. The big question is the severity of this recession, the depth of the recession, how much economic pain is going to come from this recession. That's what we're trying to figure out. So there are three basic variables that economists are looking at right now that could really exaggerate, precipitate, and really just accelerate an economic downturn. You have a very different economy this year than you had last year. If you remember last year, there was a really tight labor market. It was hard for companies to get workers. Now it's a little bit easier. Now companies are letting workers go. You saw Facebook is letting go of a lot of workers. There was an internal memo that was sent out by Zuckerberg's team, where someone basically said that morale at Facebook is low because of all these layoffs. Everybody's scared. Nobody's feeling good about the job anymore. So this is a real thing. This is kind of happening in different companies. At the same time, you see certain booms like in the AI space and EV space and things like that. So it's a real interesting. So right now, there's an economist that I really like, but named Mohammed El-Arian, who made a point that I agree with 100%. So I'm going to share this point to help you understand what's happening and what we're looking at. There's basically what you would call a three-headed monster. You're facing what he calls a trilemma with the economy. There are three factors that can ruin your economy or cause you to have some significant economic distress. And I want you to just listen and pay attention. Look for some of these buzzwords when the economists are talking about it. The first is what they might call price stability or inflation. Inflation has been the big beast that we've been fighting, for the last couple of years. Inflation is that three-headed monster, or part of that three-headed monster that is really, really stressing out so many people right now. Inflation. How many of you have noticed the price of goods going up? How many of you noticed the price of rent going up? How many of you have noticed the price of homes going up? Give me a yes if you've noticed some of these things. And the price of food at the grocery store. There's all these things. Well, inflation is the beast. That is the beast they're trying to kill. And the problem is with killing inflation inflation is a lot like chemotherapy. If you know anything about chemotherapy, and you probably do, because lots of people are dying from things like cancer and getting sick from cancer because the food industry is trying to kill you. By the way, the stuff they're serving you is incredibly unhealthy. And if you know anything about chemo, you'll know that chemo kills bad cells, but it also kills good cells. Chemo makes you better in a certain way, but it can also make you very sick. Chemo is a really almost a borderline torturous way to do something that you absolutely must do if you want to kill those cancer cells. So inflation is the cancer cell. The rest of the economy are all the other cells that are being killed as you're fighting inflation. Well, what are the things that are being killed as they're fighting inflation? How are they fighting inflation? Well, they're fighting inflation by increasing interest rates. The Federal Reserve has been hiking rates for the last couple of years. You probably heard me talk about that on this channel, so I won't reiterate what that means, but they're increasing interest rates. That's why your mortgages and everything else are going up in costs and stuff like that. This is causing the second monster, the second part of the three-headed monster, which is instability in the banks. Some are wondering if we're going to run into what is called a credit crunch, where businesses can't get loans that they need in order to continue to do business. When businesses can't get loans, well, guess what? Businesses don't hire employees if they don't have the financing they need in order to survive. So basically, fighting this first leg of the three-headed monster, inflation, is causing the second leg, which is this sort of concern, these tremors. He used the word tremors. I like that word tremors to describe what's going on with the banking system. You had a couple banks fail. Silicon Valley Bank fails. Signature Bank fails. And then everybody's wondering if this is just the beginning of a massive collapse or if this is just much ado about nothing. I'm going to tell you, some of the conspiracy theorists I'm seeing online are going overboard. There are lots of people online that will do everything they can to just scare the hell out of you and make you think that the whole banking system is going to collapse tomorrow. I don't agree with that. I'd rather give you information that allows you to discern that we've done this before. We've been here before. We've been here 1,000 times before. So there's nothing new about 2023. There's very few things that are new about 2023 that didn't exist in the past. The third part of the three-headed monster is unemployment. Unemployment is expected to increase. They are trying to, it's sad, it's really sad, but by increasing interest rates, they're really trying to increase unemployment. They're trying to slow down the growth of wages, which is one component of inflation. They're trying to keep workers from having like too many job offers and everything else. So unemployment, unfortunately, is going to be one of the indicators that tells us that we might be heading toward a recession. That's the third head of this monster, is not having sort of a maximum job availability for everybody. And in corporate earnings that have been coming in lately have started to make people wonder if this might be the beginning of the end. They're actually saying that the market's been dropping the last few days. They're actually encouraging not to fall into the whole buy the dip mentality, because the dip may keep dipping, baby. It may keep on going. So this might be a dip, baby dip, not just a one dip, but a double dip or a triple dip. So you may want to be careful in terms of how you invest. Don't assume that any dip is the last dip, because you can always dip further in this stock market. Now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. I have a new book on Amazon. It's called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. It is an Amazon bestseller. Everybody loves it. The ratings are extremely high. It is a Black wealth training manual, the first ever Black wealth training manual I've ever seen, that gives every family that wants to build an empire in your home. If you want to build an empire in your family, these are 10 things you can do with your children and with the resources that you have in your family that will leave a legacy that will last 200 years. I want boss moves. I want power moves. We're declaring war on the wealth gap because we're trying to create a new racial wealth gap. The new racial wealth gap will be one where Black people are taking the lead, but all Black people won't take the lead. Some Black people aren't going to listen, but that's okay. Their kids can work for your kids. That's okay. Your kids will have a job for their kids. So we're going to make sure that they get taken care of. But intelligent Black people are the secret superpower of the Black community. I need the talented 10th to stand up, take your place on the throne, and understand that it is your job to teach your children to be economic leaders in the 21st century and beyond. Give me a yes if you believe me. Give me a yes if you know how smart we are. Give me a yes if you know that this is what we can do. This is the plan. That's the plan. That's how we're going to take over this game. All right. So anyway, hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. So let me give a quick summary, and then I'm going to actually add on a little extra bonus. The three-headed monster isn't really a three-headed monster, actually. The three-headed monster doesn't have just three heads. Actually, the three-headed monster is a four-headed monster. And that's what's really sad about it, because Muhammad El-Arian and some others They've mentioned the price instability. They talked about inflation. They've mentioned the unemployment issue. The unemployment is going to go. It's going to get higher. There's no doubt about it. They also mentioned, a drop, or they mentioned the financial instability of the banking system. Right. Well, there's one fourth what they call a black swan event that could really disrupt things in the near future. Has anybody been paying attention to the Democrats, these idiots in Washington who shouldn't be running the country? They shouldn't even be running a Burger King. But you got these idiots in Washington that are fighting over the debt ceiling. Has anybody been paying attention to that? Has anybody noticed what's going on in Washington in this debt ceiling battle? Well, now they're playing a big game of economic chicken. And the problem is that as our country gets more and more divided, and people get more and more stubborn, and people become less and less willing to listen to each other, you have this risk that somebody could drive the car off a bridge. You have a risk that they could actually run into the debt ceiling, default on the debt, and never come back to the table and truly compromise in a way that works. To be honest with you, the Democrats and the Republicans both have a point. The Republicans, are correct that the government, the spending during the pandemic was insane. They were printing money and sending checks out to people who didn't even want the money and weren't getting the money to the people who really need the money. Now the government's going back trying to claw back all the fraud that took place during the pandemic. But the fraud was predictable because you didn't have proper checks and balances when you were just dumping money on the economy. And then you want to tell black people you can't afford reparations. Well, get the hell up out of here with that. I saw you throw away $2 or $3 trillion that didn't need to be spent in the way that it was spent. So that caused the inflation problem, and everyone predicted it. Every economist I know with two brain cells said, if you keep doing this, you're going to have a problem with inflation, but they kept doing it. Now, guess what? We have a problem with inflation. So that's where the Republicans are right. Where the Democrats are correct, though, is they've made the point that the reason that the deficit is so big and the reason the debt is getting so big is because rich people are not paying their fair share in taxes. This goes all the way back to George Bush days. I mean, where Bush around the year 2000 passed a bunch of tax cuts for wealthy people, following the trend of Ronald Reagan before him. And then 9/11 happened. They went and spent $2 trillion or whatever they spent fighting this war in Iraq and in Afghanistan, which didn't make any sense to anybody. And next thing you know, you got a deficit that is absolutely insane, because then you had the economic collapse of 2007, and then you had the pandemic. So now you've got this massive scenario where the government credit card has been maxed to the limit. It has been maxed insanely high. It's the debt level is insane. I could show you. There's a website called debt.gov. I think that's what it is. I think it's debt.gov. Maybe it's usdebt.gov or something like that. I think it's called debt.gov. Okay, it's not debt.gov. Okay, let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Debt. It's like the debt clock, or maybe it's debtclock.org. usdebtclock.org. That's what it is. usdebtclock.org. And let me show y'all. I'm going to do a screen share right quick because I need y'all to see this. Please hit the thumbs up button as we do this. Hit that thumbs up button, notification bell. Make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. All right. So here is the debt clock. And I want you to pay attention to a couple of things here. If you're watching on Instagram, you can't see it, but I'll just say, I'll tell you what I'm looking at, and that'll explain it to you. All right. So look at this debt level. The debt level in the United States is $31 trillion. That is insane. That is an insanely high number. That number was nowhere near. And look at this. It's moving. It's constantly moving. Like literally in the amount of time it takes me to finish this sentence, the U.S. government will be at least another couple $100,000 in debt in the amount of time it takes me to finish this sentence. I kid you not. This is the tax revenue, $4.6 trillion. Let's see here. The spending is $6 trillion. So you're bringing in 4.6 trillion and you're spending 6 trillion. So that means that's like somebody living in a household. Imagine if you get married, ladies. Imagine if you got married and your husband, you were making $46,000 a year and your husband was spending $60,000. Like, would you get mad at that man? Would you kick him straight in his testicles? I know I would. I ain't never gonna have no husband. I got a beautiful wife, a black wife, by the way. Shout out to all beautiful black women who hold it down for us, because y'all don't get the respect you deserve. But anyway, she would kick me square in my balls if I was out here spending money like that. Well, that's what your politicians are doing. They're elected officials. They're making 4.6 trillion in revenue. They're spending 6 trillion a year. Now, here's another part of the graph I want to draw your attention to. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll say it out loud as I show it. I'm going to try to put it right at the top so you can see it. See where here it says U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio. Debt to GDP, that's the amount of debt to the amount of your gross domestic product, your national productivity, almost a little bit like income, your ability, the total value of the goods and services produced in that economy. Look at 1960. The U.S. debt to GDP ratio in 1960 was 52.99%. In 1980, we got real tight with the bread, and we went all the way down to 34%, 34.56%. That's good. That's good progress. Look at the number now. Can y'all see that? I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm gonna try to make it big. Let me make it big so we can really understand just how financially screwed your government is, how your politicians are just a bunch of dummies. Look at this. Do y'all see this? Give me a yes if you see what I'm showing you. Look at this. You went from 52% of a debt to GDP ratio to 120% now. 120%. So you literally owe more than you're actually making. So the government is in trouble financially. That debt ceiling debate is going to continue. It's going to continue to get worse. They're not listening to any people that really know what they're talking about. These politicians are a bunch of idiots, so they're going to drive this country off an economic cliff. So to some extent, I don't have a big issue with all the alarmists and conspiracy theorists who keep telling you the dollar is going to collapse and all these other things are going to happen. Those things will happen eventually. I just don't think they're going to happen next week. I don't think they're going to happen next month. But if you know that if I agree that you should maybe invest in some alternative assets, maybe get ready to possibly move out of the country if things destabilize, well, maybe, I mean, if Vladimir Putin pushes a button on one of those hypersonic missiles, everything could change tomorrow. So just always kind of be on alert, but don't be overzealous in terms of being an alarmist. That's not a fun life to live. You got to look at what's real and not just what could be real. Okay, so anyway, that's my 2 cents, guys. I hope that this conversation was helpful. I hope that you benefited from this discussion. I hope that you learned something today. I'm in Houston for 2 days. We are doing a Black Wealth Boot Camp, a deep dive analysis, where I've actually put together a training manual for the training manual. The training manual is my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, a guide for any family to build a wealth legacy that lasts for the next 200 years. And I actually put together 100 slides on how to implement this in your family, codes of conduct, strategic layouts and frameworks you can use. It's very easy to understand. I designed it so that even an 8-year-old can understand it. And I encourage you, if you have an 8-year-old in your house, get them ready now, because again, we are declaring war on the racial wealth gap, and we win all battles because we're soldiers and we just don't lose. That's not in our vocabulary. So feel free to join us in Houston. If you want to join us, just go to BoyceWatkins.com, or you can also go to BoyceWatkins.com and take a look at our financial flashcards for kids, our financial workbooks and things like that. And yesterday we had a great conversation. If you still want to check it out, a professor named Dr. Sandy Darity out of Duke went on Dr. Phil and gave him the business about Black people and reparations. And I gave a full-throated support of what he's doing. I made it real clear that this conversation is important. This reparations conversation is now making it into mainstream media. This is our time to move. This is where we jump. This is where we pounce. So basically, I did a long conversation, long breakdown of it last night. If you want to find it on my website, BoyceWatkins.com, feel free to do that. And of course, we always have fun with some other stuff, like we talked about how all the Walmarts are leaving all the Black neighborhoods of Chicago. And that's always a fun, interesting conversation, because there's a lot of social issues that are happening that I think we should understand as we build wealth as well. So anyway, guys, God bless you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good night. And hit the thumbs up button on your way out and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'll see you soon. Take care now. Peace.